Welcome, everyone, to another Wellness Wednesday brought to you by Bay Community Health. We today are going to again be holiday focused. We're going to celebrate Thanksgiving a little early and talk about gratitude today. So, a little bit about why gratitude is important. So, while we're heading into Thanksgiving and our days will become Thanksgiving, gratitude can turn every day into a Thanksgiving day. We want to change. Part of what gratitude can become is changing our ordinary experiences and making them extraordinary, making every day and every moment a little bit more special. As parents, we often get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everything that's going on, in our to-do lists, in our needing to get kids to and from their different activities, or just even trying to get them to do their homework and get up in time to go to school. It's a lot for parents to handle. And we want to make sure that we infuse gratitude not only into our own lives, but also while doing it, we're teaching our children how to infuse gratitude into their lives. So I want to spend a little bit of time tonight talking about why it's so important. So the benefits of gratitude are a lot larger than we thought. It's not just, happy people stay happy, and it's not just thanking someone and feeling good about thanking them or having good manners, but we've actually found out there are a lot of psychological benefits that we'll talk in more detail about, the psychological benefits that come from gratitude. There are physical benefits that come from gratitude, and there are social benefits that come from gratitude. And we're going to talk about a little bit about each one of those and what that's all about. And it's not just about gratitude for yourself, it's also about gratitude for your children and teaching your children how to express gratitude. And we'll go through some different things at the end on how you can do that. And of course, I'm sure many of you are versed. We all, if you've ever been on Etsy or Pinterest, there are tons of gratitude ideas out there. So a lot of this might be things you've already heard. What I want to make sure that you know is kind of the science behind why this really is important and why this is more than just a fad or something that we do at Thanksgiving. So, like I said before, gratitude is more than just saying thank you. It's gratitude in all forms is associated with happiness. Whether we say thank you to someone or receive the same from others, the feeling it brings is that of pure satisfaction and encouragement. Expressions of gratitude help in building and sustaining long-term relationships, deal with adversities, and bounce back with strength and motivation. So truly, gratitude can help us in many ways. And thank you is just one of the ways that we can express gratitude. When we express gratitude, we are starting to bring on properties and of optimism, selflessness, spirituality, empathy, and it also creates self-esteem. And all of these are also linked to happiness. When people are happy, they often express that they have these characteristics. So the connection between gratitude and happiness is strong and multidimensional. Expressing gratitude not only to others, but also to ourselves induces positive emotions, primarily happiness. By producing feelings of pleasure and contentment, gratitude impacts our overall health and well-being as well. Gratitude and happiness. So how do they interact? Well, gratitude can help improve our relationships at home and at work. In a survey on gratitude of adult professionals of British psychologists and wellness expert Robert Holden found that 65% of people, 65 out of 100 people, selected happiness over health. Although they indicated that they were both equally important for a good life, they still chose happiness. So this suggests that many of the roots of psychopathological conditions, or what we would call mental health challenges, like depression, anxiety, and stress, may often be rooted in unhappiness. Certainly, I've seen in my own office that when I have couples, that unhappiness is a key to when a relationship starts to go the wrong direction. And part of that is we start looking for happiness with externally or from somebody else. And truly, we need to seek it from within. And we can seek it from within using a tool like gratitude. It creates positive emotions. It also creates social connections. It reinforces pro-social behavior. So that's kind of a psych term. But basically what that means is it's gratitude creates an environment where someone who may otherwise struggle in a social environment, it creates a positive environment for them. And think about it. Think about a time when you've gone somewhere and you walk up to a complete stranger and they compliment you, or you stand next to someone and they make mention of how lovely the sunset is. It really does create a different environment when you're around that person than it would if they complained about something or said nothing at all. Gratitude reduces stress and improves sleep quality and builds emotional awareness, which we'll talk about more. And there's a correlation to gratitude, a positive correlation with vitality and energy. So many things that gratitude impacts. And I want to talk a little bit about how gratitude is the natural, what we call happy pill. So for those that might have diagnosed depression or anxiety, they may be on something called an SSRI, which is a serotonin selective reuptake inhibitor. And that basically works to keep serotonin, which is the little structure on the bottom of the picture, in between your neurons. And by it staying out longer, the hope is that the receiving neurons will absorb more serotonin and thus create a more happy experience. Dopamine is also another happy neurotransmitter, another chemical within our brain. And dopamine is one of those neurotransmitters that's often released in joyous events, also related to certain drugs. Dopamine is released. Dopamine is tied to addiction because of the strength of positive emotions and feelings that dopamine can create. So instead of, taking a drug or having to do, you can just express gratitude. And in some of the more recent research, daily practice gratitude, both receiving and giving, can have a pretty close response if it is consistently and regularly practiced to having our brains release dopamine and serotonin. The other thing about gratitude and why it's important is because we are naturally wired to look for threats, right? Imagine our ancestors. It was a dangerous world, and we were always worried about what was around us and what was going on. So we regularly had to look for threats and be prepared for them. We live in mostly a much safer world. And so those threats aren't as prevalent. And because of that, our brain finds threats in other things. So when that happens, we're still seeking it, right? A friend that's a little off one day, we go, oh no, they're not going to be our friend anymore. Or, someone is grumpy and we assume it's our fault that they're grumpy. Or something bad happens and we assume that that's the start of a really bad day. We're all looking for those threats, right? And why something bad's going to happen. And that's natural. So I will normalize that and say that is natural for humans to look for that. And by using gratitude, and you can see it in populations, in monks, you can see it in certain religious sects, like a convent where the nuns are regularly practicing gratitude. They have a very different outlook on life. And part of that is because when you express daily gratitude and receive daily gratitude, it actually rewires your brain. Your brain goes from looking for a threat to starting to recognize that the threats are more rare. And then it starts to seek other things. It starts to seek positivity. And in that, it then helps, and I say release adrenaline. That's kind of I typed that. That's, if you just read that, let me explain what I mean by that. It allows us to get adrenaline out of our body. So we release it in times of extreme, intense things, right? Adrenaline helps us run faster, helps us fight, right? That fight, flight, or freeze response during a threat. But if adrenaline sits in our body, and if we have chronic release of adrenaline, that's a stress response. And chronic stress is not good for us, as many of us know. So when we express gratitude or we practice daily gratitude, it actually helps our body to process adrenaline out of our bodies. So it gets rid of that stress response and helps our bodies to relax. So that's what I mean by a release adrenaline. I'm sorry that wording's a little touchy. There have been studies that have been done where we found that daily gratitude actually helps reduce the perception of pain. As we know, many people experience pain at different levels differently. And so if we experience daily gratitude, we've noticed that those people will experience the same hurtful event and will experience much less pain. Gratitude also helps with sleep. This is something that I use on the regular for people that come to my office because that are struggling with sleep. We talk about doing gratitude journals and finishing your day with some gratitude. Gratitude, because of a lot of these things, also helps increase resilience. And gratitude can help reduce prolonged grief. So after losing someone, gratitude isn't going to take away the grief cycle completely. What it can do, though, is help someone get from a very dark place to a place of contentment from their loss by expressing gratitude for what they did receive from that loss, maybe what they learned. There's something in the Buddhist tradition where every person, every living thing that we come in contact with is a teacher. And so even if the experience with that other living thing is negative, it's still teaching us something. And so this is kind of related to that if we can express gratitude, even if it's a negative thing, it can help us get over the negative thing much faster. So as you can see, there are just so many positive things that gratitude can do for us and our children. I mean, imagine if our children were able to get over something that they were disappointed in more quickly. That would certainly be nice for us as parents, right? We wouldn't spend quite so much time explaining to them that, the loss of their 8-year-old soccer game really isn't the end of the world, even though it breaks our heart to see them cry, or whatever we might see with our children, whether they didn't make they didn't get into on a certain team, or they didn't get the lead role in a play, or into the college that they wanted to get into, or the school, any number of things, right? Or maybe a friend that used to be their friend isn't their friend anymore. All these things, if we can help teach our children gratitude, they will be able to endure those things better, which makes our job as parents a little bit easier. So gratitude can make parenting easier, which I didn't put on there, but it can. It just takes a little practice. And I saw this quote and I had to put it in here. It's so, so important. And I love it. It's not happiness that brings us gratitude. It's gratitude that brings us happiness. I think that's so important because gratitude is something we can learn how to do, and it's something that we can practice. So when we do that regularly, it's going to change our neural pathways in our brain. It's going to increase the happy chemicals in our brain, and that's going to help us feel happier. When we feel happier, we're going to be more motivated, more energized, we're going to be more fun to be around. Just think of all the benefits. And so today is really part of the practice, and what we'll go into in the second half is, how do we do that? How do we practice gratitude? It isn't always easy, and it is something that develops slowly. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. So, put many ways to practice gratitude, and we're going to go through all of these, or at least many of them, in the coming slides. Some that aren't on there, I'll spend a little bit more time on now. One thing that I didn't put in there as a slide is discovering joy again. For many of my clients, they know this well. I often ask people to do what I call the joy exercise. And I have them sit down, and I give them 5 to 10 minutes, and I ask them to write 20 items that bring them joy. People, places, events, moments in time. It can be anything you can think of. And it can be a big event or a small event, anything in between. And people have come up with so many different things. I always love hearing what people come up with in their joy exercise. And part of why I do this is because sometimes people are surprised when they sit down and think about it, what brings a smile to their face. And it's that simple practice. One, we're practicing gratitude in some way. You're thinking about things that bring you happiness. And by doing that, that's a subtle practice of gratitude. And then it also gives you insight into what matters to you, which isn't the same. I can tell you, as many times as I've done this joy exercise, it is not the same. There's not been a single time where all 20 have been the same as somebody else. I've had a lot of couples where they have many that are similar, but never have I had I've had 2 people that have had the same 20. So what that tells me is everyone has a slightly different take on life, right? And so to find what makes us happy and to find what brings us joy can really be a simple practice of gratitude. Welcome. I'll pause for a second to let those joining come in, and I'll maybe go back over a couple things, because we're getting through this presentation much faster than I thought we would. Okay. I will continue while our guests come in. Hello and welcome.
Hi. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I'm getting through this presentation a lot faster than I thought. So I'll probably just start here and finish, and then I can go back to the beginning and kind of share the beginning part, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then I would just ask that if you have a question, of course, unmute and please ask, or ask at the end. Otherwise, if you put yourself on mute during it, that'd be good, just so that we minimize the the extra noise during the session.
Yep.
So welcome. So I just spent some time talking about, in honor of upcoming Thanksgiving, the importance of gratitude, which, like I said, I'll come back to at the end. Right now, we're just kind of talking a little bit about how to practice gratitude. And I was discussing the joy exercise that I do with so many of my clients. And I just ask people to spend 5 or 10 minutes and write down 20 items that bring them joy. And it can be people, places, events, moments, it doesn't matter. And I really love reading them, and they can be big events, small events, big things, little things. And the great part about it is that none of them have ever been the same. And it gives insight for people as to what really matters to them, which is why I often do it. And it's a really subtle practice of gratitude, because you're taking note of big to small aspects of your life that allow you to smile. And we do a lot more with that, going forward in my sessions. Oftentimes, depending on what's going on with the person, I might ask them to categorize their joy events, or their into categories, which then helps us discover values. Or I might ask them to make sure they actually experience a couple of those joy events every day, or at least a few of them every week, reminding us that to experience joy is part of life. And part of this whole talking about gratitude tonight is, if we learn how to practice gratitude, because it is not something that necessarily comes natural to us, we are naturally designed to look for threat. By doing that, we're teaching our kids how to practice gratitude. And right before you came on, I was just talking about the fact that gratitude actually makes parenting easier. If our kids can learn how to be grateful, it makes the act of parenting a lot easier. So other ways to practice gratitude, spending time appreciating yourself. It's always, I think it's harder for adults, because we've been kind of taught to not talk about ourselves, or to not brag, all these things. And so then to go back and have to appreciate ourselves seems hard. And I think the important part to remember about that one is just, it doesn't mean that it's inaccurate, and it doesn't mean that it's selfish to just feel really good. It can be as simple as, after going for a run, appreciating and thanking your body for allowing you to get it done, right? And recognizing that your body's strong and it allowed you to get through it. It can be something as simple as that, or it can be something much larger, like, maybe you got that degree or that certification that you really wanted, or you achieved a goal. All of those things, and giving yourself a moment to celebrate that, are really important. And that's also an expression of gratitude. Admiring beauty is a really simple one. That's kind of, the admiring beauty one was kind of my Ferdinand the Bull, stopping and smelling the roses. Just taking a minute to notice something that's really pretty. An easy one around here, we have some really beautiful sunrises and sunsets off of the water, the areas near the water here in Maryland. So that's one that I have often found. Gratitude journals are great. I recommend this to a lot of people when we go back talking about gratitude and helping with sleep. Having a gratitude journal and writing down 3 things you're grateful for right before bed can improve your dreams and can improve your sleep. A lot of people that experience negative things or have a lot of worry, the act of just writing those 3 positive things down before bed can alter the way the brain goes into the practice of restoration while we're sleeping. Something that isn't in the slides coming up is volunteering, and especially volunteering in things. I really encourage parents to do this with their kids as young as they're able to. Sometimes with younger kids, it's easier to start doing things with animals, but helping at animal shelters and helping at soup kitchens and putting these together where they actually get to see people that are less fortunate than them, or see animals that don't have the home that they have, really being a part of it, that perspective creates an environment of gratitude. And so many times I've seen in these volunteering events where, people that have experienced something really hard, and they are grateful for what you have to give them. And so it's this mutually beneficial thing. And it really is an amazing experience for kids. The younger they get to do it, it really does create tremendous perspective. Having a gratitude buddy. This is a great one, especially for adults, because we often forget in our hustle bustle days and everything that's going on. We sometimes just forget to stop and smell the roses. So having someone that keeps us accountable, if you have a partner or spouse, that can be your gratitude buddy. Just having them, oftentimes, Thanksgiving dinner is a great one, but if we did that every meal with our family, where we just say one thing we're grateful for, having that accountability can really create a different atmosphere. And it also, by sharing with others, we're hearing what they're grateful for. And oftentimes that opens up our aperture to see more things to be grateful for that we wouldn't have previously thought of. So that's a really good one as well. I love gratitude jars as gifts. This is a great one to give to coaches, teachers, friends, where you just put little slips of paper that things about that person that you're grateful for. They're great Mother's and Father's Day gifts. And you put it in a jar, you decorate the jar, and you give it to that person. And that person can go to that jar when they're having a rough day and just read one of the slips of paper. And then they get to recognize something that someone is grateful for them for. Because remember, gratitude both works in giving and receiving. So what a wonderful, very cheap, simple gift. And to have kids make these can be pretty tremendous. You can also make your own. I've seen it in other ways where people decorate a jar and then they write things down every day or maybe once a week, and they put the things in the jar. And then at the end of a year, or when they're feeling down, they go into the jar to remind them what they're grateful for. So you can use the gratitude jars in a number of different ways. And it's a great practice, especially for kids, because you can make it a craft. You can use, Sharpies to decorate the jars, or you can use paints, and all work, and the kids love doing it. Letters of thanks. Wow, this is one of my favorites. I absolutely love writing thank you letters. And it is something that is painful as a parent to get a small child to write a thank you letter. And I think it's so important. One, it's teaching them how to say thank you and really meaning it sincerely. And so maybe after a birthday party, as tough as it is to get your child to sit down and write thank you cards, it's really helping to rewire their brain. It's helping them to understand what it means to say thank you. And how much better is it to receive a letter from a child as an adult, to get a thank you from a child, than it is to get one written from the parent, for their child. I remember many years ago getting this adorable thank you note from a neighbor. She was maybe in 5th grade, I think. And it was just the sweetest letter. I still have it today, even though that's not my neighbor anymore. I kept it because it was just such a lovely sentiment. And there are several thank you letters that I have kept from people that aren't in my life anymore, but that thanked me for something. And I do pull those out from time to time when I'm feeling down about myself or having maybe some self-doubt, pulling that out and reminding myself that I have been able to help someone and I have been able to give back. And so letters of thanks, again, both work for receiving and giving. Connection with nature. This is a back to, very similar to admiring beauty, connecting with nature, stopping and smelling the roses, just spending some time to be grateful for seeing an animal that we don't often see, or noticing something small and remarkable, right? Like watching an ant carry something that's twice the size of the ant, even though ants might be annoying, just to recognize and have some sort of moment of gratitude for that amazing feat of strength is kind of cool. And again, if you do that in front of your children and say, wow, look at this, isn't this amazing? It helps them really find the joy in everyday things, which is part of what gratitude does. Bringing in all 5 senses during a meal is something that I've seen a lot of people do, and it's a really neat way to, again, create gratitude. You know, some people say a prayer before a meal, which I think is a wonderful practice as well. If you're not religious, just sitting down and making note of how wonderful something smells, and then making note of how something feels when you're eating it, or how it feels when it's in your belly, or feeling the steam on your face. All of these things create a type of gratitude. And then finally, finding silver linings and lessons in negative events. This goes back to the fact how gratitude helps create resilience. So when and how that kind of Buddhist tradition of every person or every living thing is a teacher. In this way, we can have lessons, right? We have teachers even in negative events. So, and this also helps with grief. So losing something, whether it's the loss of a grandparent for your child or a friend that no longer is friends with them, taking note of the time that you had with that friend and what that did for you really helps them get past it, and in a good way. And then they can have a positive memory of that person, that event, whatever they lost, right? Even if it's a stuffed animal and they lost their stuffed animal, you can have them remember what a wonderful time they had with that stuffed animal while they had it. So none of these are easy to do. They all take a little bit of time, but some of them are pretty easy, right? It's not too hard to just stop and watch an ant carry something twice its size. And it just takes a little bit of effort to take the time to do it. So what I have in the next several slides are just some simple practices, some simple like documents, I guess you could say, that you could use. So this is one that's a little bit more for adults, but you can still use it with kids. You have a gratitude list, and on one side you can list what you're grateful, like I am grateful to, so talking about people or animals or living things, right? And what you're grateful for. And just that subtle difference can be really powerful. You also, this little 4 square is nice because it talks about having gratitude for not just for our people, but also yourself. And then it talks about challenges that you're grateful for and the aspects within yourself that help you overcome challenges or that are significant to you. So I really like that 4 square because it kind of brings in different categories all together. And of course, we can make this look pretty and cute if we wanted it for our kids. Some other ones I wanted to show you. So there's, the gratitude to talk about meaning a situation. So what I like about the next few slides that I'll show is that they both ask you to name something and then ask you to talk about the emotions that come up and how your body feels when you take the time to express it. And that's really important. I do that a lot in my office with adults and kids, because taking time to notice the full experience really helps solidify in your mind what that experience means to you. And it will become a longer lasting memory. And if it's something that is positive, you're more likely to repeat it. If it's something negative, if you really take the time to truly experience that negative thing and what you're grateful for from that negative thing, you'll more likely keep the lesson. So that's a few of these are like this. So we have one that's a situation, we have one that's a person, or this one is a person, thing, or event. We have one that, that's about your family. How does your family make your life better, and members that you're grateful for, and something unique about your family that you're grateful for. We have ones that are about just being in your home, right? What's your favorite place in your home, or your favorite thing, or, drawing it. So different ways you can help your kids experience gratitude. This is just a different one. Who or what are you grateful for? And how can you give back? So I like this one because it talks about giving gratitude back to others, not just feeling it. Just, a simple thank you note that we talked about earlier. And then we have ones that are more like gratitude journals, right? So this one is more like something someone would do once a week, and answering certain questions. Sometimes when I'm picking my kids up in the car at the end of the day, I'll ask them something that they were grateful for today, or sometimes I'll ask the question, what was something that made them laugh or smile? Especially, I like that one because even if they're in a bad mood, they can usually think of something that made them smile. And then, of course, this one is just the weekly gratitude, just saying, putting something down for each day can be really fun. I've had certain clients before draw and make different drawings that are related to what they were grateful for. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the recording and go back to what I spoke before you joined. And that way I feel like you can get the full effect. And I will just, for purposes of the recording and what will get posted, I just want to say thank you to the Bay community. And I look forward to hearing gratitude, and what I would love for people to post what they're grateful for on our Facebook page. So I am going to just end our recording. Have a great night, Bay community.